Hey everybody, it's the Opinion Atheist. This one's gonna be laid back. This is just wanted to talk about something that's really it's affected me a lot my whole life, and it's growing up as a perfectionist. And what I mean by that is I have to be perfect at everything I do. I have to be not just the best I can be, the best anyone can be. Like that. That's what I mean when I say perfectionist. And I thought for a long time, why am I so intent on being just so good? Like, why is it that my life has to surpass everybody else's? And I thought about that for a long time. I've thought about it for years. Some of the conclusions I came to was, when I was really young, I don't know if it had been a learned, it was a learned thing. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I just don't know where I learned it. Is that I had this formula for how to live my life, and it meant that love equals success. And that's really a shitty thing to live by, especially when you're a kid. I can't exactly tell you why that was taught to me, how that was taught to me, for what reason that came to be. I can't remember shit when I was really young. I know that something that might have contributed to it was when I was really young, my mom and dad split up. It wasn't really amiable. There was the divorce kid thing, like go to mom's house for the summer, dad gets custody, or vice versa. One parent's gonna talk bad about the other. They're gonna sit there and sometimes they're gonna sit there and try and fill your head with shit. One of the things I really respect my dad for was he refused to talk shit about my mom in front of me and my sister. And how hard was that? I'm not going to get into the details of what happened because it's none of your fucking business. But it was pretty harsh. And not just on me and not on my sister. It was, harsh on my dad, really bad. And I'm pretty sure it was harsh on my mom too. But having to live that split life, you had friends in one place, you had friends in another place. It almost created kind of like this dual identity. Like, one parent had one way they expected you to act, the other parent had another way they expected you to act. And it created this conflict. And, sometimes you'll see, I guess, that the parents try and compete for the kids' love. Like, oh, love me more, I'll buy you these presents, or I have this four-wheeler. Well, that's how it is in Texas, Oklahoma. We have a four-wheeler, we're fucking high class. But I found myself trying to compete for my parents' attention. Because to me, love equals success. And if I wasn't getting attention, when kids act out, you're not paying enough attention to me, I'm going to act out, I'm going to, break shit, I'm going to say cuss words, I'm going to act out in school. That's why kids act out. Even if kids are getting enough attention, they're still going to do it because they want more. Because anybody who has kids knows that kids are narcissistic little shits. Everything's about them. They can't help it because, that's, especially when they're babies, we devote our time to paying attention to them. They think that they have to have it, and there's nothing wrong with that being a kid, but if you get older and you realize the attention has to be on you all the time, and only your opinions and only your needs and wants matter, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's how it became for me. Am I going to say I'm not still narcissistic? Nah, I probably am. Fuck, I got a nice haircut, I got really cool tattoos. I'm just kidding. But it creates this poisonous mindset for a kid, especially. And living my life by this love equals success equation. I remember that I would try so hard to be just the best, the absolute best, so that my parents would love me, that I would get good friends and they would love me, and then maybe one day I would love myself. And fuck you. How fucked up is that? You got a 7-year-old who hates himself. And that happens way too often. I guarantee I wasn't the only kid like that. And anybody who's watching that happened to you, I'm really sorry. I feel your pain. You are not alone. But I guess one of the earliest points where I guess I can think I remember trying to be the absolute best is, when I was a kid, I was sitting in front of the TV, and this commercial came on, and there was this guy climbing this mountain, and he had no ropes and nothing to really support himself. If he fell, he was going to be a pancake. And I was like, I'm intrigued. Ooh, what's going to happen next? I think it was like 4 or 5. And he starts getting to the point where he's like getting towards the top, and he's hanging on like this, and he's like, ah! And he slips, and he's dangling, and it's tragic, and it's like watching Point Break. And I'm like, ah! I looked at my dad. My dad was in the Navy, so I was like, Dad, what if he falls? My dad's like, he's not gonna fall, son. I'm like, but why won't he fall? And my dad's like, because he's a Marine. I've got to be a Marine. You know, because I thought that guy was really cool. And I asked my dad what the Marines were, and he's like, the Marines are the most elite fighting force in the world. And he pretty much spent like the next 10 minutes blowing Marines. Like, just Marines are so awesome. Marines. So, because my dad loved the Marines so much, and I knew the Marines were the best now, I had to be one. And I lived my entire life up to the point when I joined solely for that purpose. Because it was one lackluster success after another to me. No matter how well I actually did, it wasn't good enough because I didn't have that paramount achievement in my life, my dream. And the older I got, the more I realized it wasn't my dream. You know, and that's shitty. I spent so long contemplating everything I could do just to lead to that point, and it wasn't even mine. I had internalized somebody else's value, and they didn't even mean for me to. You know, when I was in school, I'm not a genius. I like to think I'm a relatively smart person, but you know, I took all these AP classes. I took, you know, when I was a kid, they put me on these GT stuff, like the gifted and talented, and I was like, oh yeah, I feel so special, I'm cool. And I was a nerdy little shit. Like, people get the terms geek and nerd confused. No, a geek is somebody who's into like a fandom really heavy. A nerd is somebody who's really into knowledge and sciencey shit. Like, that's a nerd to me. You can be a nerd and a geek. You can be geek and a nerd, but they're different, at least in my opinion. And I was really nerdy. I was real scrawny. I was still kind of scrawny. Fuck it. And I just couldn't rest until I was on top. You know, that was it for me. I had to be on top. And I did pretty good in school, but none of that mattered. So when I finally, you know, got to the point where I was graduating, I went to the Marine Corps. I was like, I have to be the best Marine, the absolute best one. And it broke me. Pure and simple, it broke me. Story for another time. But even going into that, I've been a Christian. I was a Christian from as early as I can remember until about maybe a year and a half ago. And even then, I had to be the best Christian. Not the best Christian I could be, the best Christian anybody could be. Because if I'm the best, then people will love me. And it's sad to say. You know, whenever I would pray the hardest. Whenever I'd speak in tongues the loudest. Whenever I'd read the Bible, I'd read it the most and the most fervently. And whenever I'd be in church, I'd be the guy dancing in front. And whenever there was a prophetic guy coming to the church, give a word, I would get the word. Whenever there was, you know, somebody trying to talk on stage, I would take the microphone, and it tumbled and cascaded into this point where I had no idea who the fuck I was. I was a mirror. If I was around you, I would try to espouse your idea of perfection. And be around somebody long enough, you morph into this weird facsimile of their values. And that's a shitty way to live life. So if that's why I'm saying to you people, I've said in a video before, make your own choices, do what you do, don't take what anybody else says at face value because it just sounds good. You're not making your own choices. And when I say that, what I'm saying is, if you're striving to be perfect, like not just the best you can be, but just absolutely perfect, what you're doing is you're aligning yourself with the goals of other people. You're internalizing other people's shit that it's not yours. And it's not that it's theft, but you are robbing yourself of something very important, and that's a sense of self-worth. you have to find worth in yourself before you can really accept who you are, before you can find who you are. I didn't find myself until I became an atheist. And am I saying, oh, atheists are just superior and we're just so much more enlightened? No, there are other people who aren't atheists that are enlightened, as in the context of themselves. But it's hard to get that way when you're constantly trying to match something. If you're letting society dictate who you are and what you should be doing, you're not your own person. So I guess the last thing I want to say, sit down and take some time to yourself. Get away from the phone, get away from the TV, get away from the computer, get away from all that shit, at least for a little while. And really question yourself, challenge yourself. Why do I believe the things I do? What is it about these beliefs that makes me want them? Do I know why? Do you? I'm the Opinion Atheist. Reason beats bullshit every time.